Hi, this is Dave from the Florida High School, and we're in the shop. We've been working on a nightstand, and last time we finished, we had the face frame attached. I've gone through it, I've got it all sanded. I added wood filler to all the nails and any cracks or seams that I saw. So I filled them, let it dry for 24 hours, sanded it, so now everything is actually ready to paint on the cabinet. Last time I mentioned we're going to make a top. I didn't know if we're going to do a painted top out of MDF or a hardwood, and I decided we're going to do a hardwood top. So the cabinet itself is 20 inches wide and 18 inches deep. And what we want is we want this top to hang over 3/4 of an inch on each side. So it's 20 inches wide, we'll hang over 3/4 on the left, 3/4 on the right. So we'll make a top that'll be 21.5 inches. The top will be flush on the back because the nightstand is going to sit up against the wall. So we'll make the top flush on the back and only hang over the front. So we'll make it hang over the front 3/4. So we have the same 3/4 inch hanging over on those three sides. So we're going to make our top 21.5 wide, 18 3/4 deep. So I took some of the wood that we have here. Just said there was one board. I cut it into 24-inch pieces. I just cut it long for now, and I've got you can see on it, there is no edge that has been surfaced. So we've got to joint one edge and get them straight. I've made this longer so we have some to work with. We're going to joint one edge, we're going to rip it down, and I've got a few pieces. We're going to rip them down to ideally 2.5, 3-inch pieces, whatever we can, and then we'll glue those together and we'll use that as our top. Before I've showed you how to glue together using biscuit joints. This time we're going to glue together. We're not going to use any biscuits whatsoever. We're just going to glue them together, and we'll show you that. So I've got my boards. All I'm going to do is I'm going to joint one edge. I'm going to clean it up and get it straight. If you look down, I mean, it's a pretty short board. The nice part about short boards, it's really easy to straighten that because there isn't much to worry about. So we'll get this one edge cleaned up so it's a straight edge, and that'll be the edge that we put up against the table saw. We don't want to rip anything until we have one clean edge. Then once we rip them, we'll joint them again to get rid of that saw cut, and we'll actually mark them to make sure we know how to put them together. And there are some flaws in the board. I'm not worried about the flaws. Some of them are different. That's just the way the top is going to look. So I'm not worried about that. If I wanted it without flaws, I'd have to pick through a lot more boards. This is what we have, so this is what we're going to use. It'll end up looking pretty nice, I think, when it's done. So we're just going to joint an edge now. We'll get an edge jointed. I'm not going to turn on the dust collector this time. Last time it was pretty noisy. I'm just going to joint the edges here, and then we'll go to the table saw after this. Remember, safety glasses always. When you're using the joiner, make sure that the fence is always clean. Keep your hands, never bring your hands lower than this blade. You get in here, these blades, they're spinning, and they're going to grind your fingers right off. So you got to be aware of that at all times. So let's get one edge straight, making sure it's tight against the fence, tight to the bottom. And just look at your board and see which edge is going to be easiest to straighten. I don't know if you can see this or not, but as I'm cutting, as I go across here, once I get across there, I'm holding pressure just on this side, and it's allowing me to straighten this edge. I don't know if you can see the gap, but I'm straight all the way to here, and I have a gap here on this end. So we don't want to keep pressure on the right side of the blade. Once we get across, we're keeping pressure just on the left side, so that way we straighten this, and we don't keep forming that arch. So that's going to keep feeding it through until I finally get this very end where that gap is jointed. And anytime you're jointing, typically the crown, if the board was crowned like this, a smiley face, you'd put it so it looked like a smiley face. And you start straightening like that. Again, we brought it through, looking on the bed from end to end. There isn't a gap anywhere through. We know that this board is straight. Again, this is only a 24-inch board, so it's fairly easy to straighten. All right, I'm just going to keep jointing the other boards, and then we'll go to the saw. Okay, so we're at the saw. I got all the edges jointed, one edge on the 3 boards I got. Now, because of the knots in there, I can't just cut them at all the same size. And so what I've done is I look at each board and I'm measuring based off the knots what I need to cut it at. And I'm not worried about being on an exact dimension, so I'm just going to use my gauge without checking it. And I'm making sure that I'm not cutting right down the center of a knot. Like this one here, I wouldn't want to cut this one at 2 1/4 because I'm at the center of a knot. As well as I wouldn't want to cut it even at 3 1/2 because I'm too close to this knot. So this one, my first strip is going to be 3 inches. I've measured each of them out. Each one, the first cut is going to be cut differently. And we'll go through, make the first cut on each board, and then we'll check them again. Remember on the saw, when you set the depth up, you want to have the valley, this point down in here, have that set at the height of your board. That's how far you would have your teeth come apart, come up above the board. Remember, when this is under 3 inches, you're going to use a push stick. You don't want to get anywhere where this red guard is. You don't want to have your fingers anywhere in that area. So I've got it set at 3 inches. The next one I'm going to cut is 2 3/4, and the next one 2 1/4. So we'll rip these, and then we'll go to another dimension. We'll measure them again. That one was at 3 inches. I didn't need a push stick. Now I'm at 2 3/4. And I'm going to use the push stick. You want to make sure you're pushing all the way through. Last one I'm going to cut at 2 1/4. And we're going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to go and measure them. This one will cut at 2 7/16. I'm also looking at the total width. Like this is 4 7/16, so I want to be about half that. Ideally, I'd cut it about around 2 1/4, which works out good for the knots. So we'll cut that one at 2 1/4. This one again is a little bit smaller, but 2 1/4 would be fine. Even based off of that knot, 2 1/4 is above it, about 1/4 inch above it, so that would be fine. So I can cut this one at 2 1/4 as well. And if I do that, I can actually run both of those through at 2 1/4 twice. This one I'm cutting at 2 7/16. It's going to be really close. I'm going to cut this one at 2 3/8, and then I can cut that through twice, based off of the width of the whole board. So we'll set it up at 2 3/8, run it through. factor in the width of the blade. The blade takes off an 1/8 of an inch, so I'm an 1/8 inch off, so I got to cut these a little bit smaller because of the blade. Looking on the back side, there's a little bit of a, you can see that. I want to cut some of that off so I don't have it part of my glued edge. So I'm going to cut another 1/4 inch off that one. We could have left that on, but over time that'll crack, fall apart. So we have our pieces. Now we have to just check to see. We needed 18 3/4, but we want this to be a little bit wider than that, so we have some plays. So I'm just going to set them up here just to see what we come up with. I've got plenty. I've got 21 inches. You know, I could actually eliminate a board if I needed to. To see what we need. That's really close. It's 19. I could be a little bit bigger. But we can go with that. And then as when we go to glue them together, we'll look at each face and see. There are some knots, like in this one, so it's a weaker knot. So I want to look at that. That one's not a great knot. But when we fill this, that knot will actually become solid. We'll glue that in on the bottom side so you don't even notice the looseness. And when we put lacquer on it, it'll be nice. So now we're going to go and we're going to joint these. Maybe I'll cut out that one. Yeah, no, I think that's what we're going to use right there. We'll joint an edge, and after we joint, we'll see if we still have enough. I'm not worried about being, I've got 5/16 of an inch to play. That's really going to be close. So we might have to, we'll plan on using this board. We'll see once we get done joining each edge, because now we're going to run each edge through the joiner, clean them up, and then we'll be ready to glue these together. Okay, so now we have smaller boards. The last time we were ripping through, we had some 7.5 inch boards. Now we have this one here is one of our narrowest ones. It's 1 3/4 inches. So when we're ripping this, we got to be careful as we go through here. We get to here, we got to make sure our finger isn't hanging way down here. We don't want our fingers going anywhere below this guard. So we're going to hold our hand here and our thumb on the end, and our thumb is going to push. We'll make sure our thumb is high enough, and we're just going to push through. So we've already straightened the board. When we joined the first time, we straightened it. Then we took that straight edge, put it up against the fence of the table saw. Now we know if we were to measure these from end to center to end, it's going to be the exact same dimension all the way across, because we already straightened them on the joiner. We ripped them at the same side. So now we're going to hold this tight to the fence all the way across here. And I've got it set up, we're going to take a 30-second off of each side. And what that's going to do, you can see this black mark here. That's from the saw blade. We actually need to sharpen our table saw blade, but we'll get rid of that saw cut. And all we're going to do is joint every single one of these on both sides. And once we get them jointed, we'll see how much that took off. Like I said, because of jointing them, I think we'll actually end up using all these pieces. So we're just going to join them again. Safety glasses on. Watch your fingers. Keep the board tight to the bed of the fence, tight up against here. We want to make sure, especially now, we're going to be gluing together. If this is tipped this way or this way, it's going to affect when we clamp the boards together. So we want to make sure, I had already checked, put a square on the bed, butt it up against the fence, and I made sure that we are completely square. So that way, if this board is tight against the fence and tight to the bottom, we're actually making a square cut, a 90-degree joint. If that's beveled in any way, when we glue these together, it can end up causing these to glue like this or like this, whatever. So we got to make sure that they're cut at a 90, so when we put them together, it's flat. All right. Okay, so we just got done jointing all the boards, went through, jointed both edges of the boards. Now I've got them set up. I put just a scrap piece of OSB down, so that way if any glue, there's going to be glue, it's going to drip down. It's not wrecking our top of our bench. And when we put these on, I've got 3 clamps that are going to be in the bottom, and I'll probably put 2 clamps on top just to help keep this flat. When you glue up, if you can see, looking at these end grains, if you zoom in, you can see these end grains, and you can see this grain here, it curves like this. You want to alternate this. This one here, it's going like this. This one, oh, we got to flip this one over. So as we go through, we just start looking at those grains, get them going opposite, and as you're looking at them, you just flip them around, change them around, make sure your grains are going opposite. That one's going like that, so we need to go opposite. So all your grains are going opposite of each other. This one's like that. These ones here I think look good. This one's going like this. This one's like this. That one's like that. So you want all of those grains, every other board, you want them opposite. So that way it'll help keep these boards flatter. The last time, if you remember these tops that we did for the nightstand, some of you had done them. Not the nightstands, I don't know what they were, TV stand or something like that, whatever we made, we biscuit jointed these. This one I'm not going to biscuit joint, we're just going to glue them. And I'm going to just stand them up on edge, each one of these, except for the very, very last one. Then all these boards are going to do is they're going to flip down. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to glue one edge, we'll glue all these edges, and I'm going to put a healthy bead on them. I'm going to leave them standing up until we have all the glue spread out. So I'm just putting a healthy bead across, remembering that when we lay them down, they're all going to tip towards the back. Like I said, my phone is beeping on me. We want to make sure that the glue is on thick enough so it covers the whole board, but also thick enough that it's got a little more so we don't have to glue both edges. You could glue both sides, but there's really no need to. Once you put them on, spread the glue out. So we want to have excess. We don't want a thin layer. We want a nice layer on it. And spread the glue out so it's literally covering every edge of the board. Okay, so I got the glue spread out on all of them. You saw on one of these, I added some glue. There wasn't quite enough on there, so I added some glue. Now we're just going to start tipping them over and butting them up. Keeping our ends lined up, tipping them all over the same direction. Slide them to this end of the clamp. My clamps are in about a ½ inch on the end. Tighten up my clamps. Like I said, then just make sure your ends are all pretty close to flush. That way you can get the most use out of your board, out of this top. If you have them staggered quite a bit, it's going to really affect the length you're going to be able to get out of it. So as you start clamping it together, make sure, if you can see underneath, you might not be able to see that, you want to make sure that everything is pushed down tight, and then just snug up one side. Go to the other side, do the same thing. Make sure they're pushed down tight, snug it up. Same thing in the center. This is a fairly simple panel to glue together because it's not very big. The panels that we made for the TV stands or the entertainment, I don't remember what those things were called. I don't know why it's drawing a blank on me. But snug these up good. I didn't grab a mallet. If you need to, take a rubber mallet, just start feeling across here. Make sure they're down tight. Clamp it up nice. You want to make sure it's tight to the clamps because however it dries is the shape it's going to take. And I'm going to put another clamp on the top. I'm going to push down. This clamp's going to help keep it flat. Just snugging them up a little bit more. Just putting it in the center of the other ones. And there we go. We can, if you want, you can wipe off the excess glue. We're going to be doing some sanding to this. We put on enough glue, making sure that it bled through. You can also scrape this glue off in about 10 minutes. You can scrape this glue off, but I got these clamps are going to be in the way, so I'm going to try to wipe as much of it off now as I can. at least on this one side. I'm considering the side that is up, I'm considering it to be my top. Check to make sure they're flat, fairly even. We can sand a few discrepancies, but you don't want it to be a long ways off. All right, so there we are clamped together. We could literally, 3 hours, we could easily pull this apart and start cutting this board and making our top. So we've got it glued together. We needed 18 3/4 by 21 1/2. So right now we are 24 inches wide by 20 1/2 deep. So we're gonna be able to, when we're done gluing it together and clamped, we'll get all the rest of the glue. There's glue on the other side we'll have to get scraped off. And on this side, we'll sand it up with a belt sander. Make sure it's even all the way across on both sides, clean it up, and then we'll take it on the saw. Actually, we'll use a skill saw. We'll set up a jig. We've got a straight edge. We'll joint one edge of this. We've got a straight edge. We'll put a jig across here, square with this edge. We'll square it across. We'll use that as a guide to take our table saw and cut this, or our skill saw, and cut this end off. That way we have two corners that are square. So we'll mark this corner that we're squaring off of here. We'll cut this corner, we'll put a mark there, so we know now the two edges that we marked, those will be the two edges that go against the fence all the time when we cut this to length and when we cut this to width. And after we cut it to size, we can put a jointed edge on it and then take the palm sander and sand it down to a nice, we'll probably just use 120 grit, I think is the finest we have. We should use 180 grit, sand it, then it'll be ready to finish. So you won't be able to see the next videos of this being finished. I'm going to try to send you a link in your paper homework so that you can go to this. You'll have to enter that link. You can go to that link and you'll be able to see us cut this to size. It'll be just a quick video. After that's done, I'm going to paint. If you can look at the box, as I said, this has all been sanded up. It's ready. Nails have been filled. This is ready to be painted. Once we get this top done drying, we'll cut it to size, square it up, cut it to size, sand it. We'll router an edge on 3 edges. We won't do the back because it's going to be flush in the back. And then we'll finish the top before we fasten it. We'll paint this and we'll finish that before we fasten it. Then once they're both finished, then we'll fasten the top to the box and the nightstand will be complete except for the drawer that we still have to make. So, like I said, now that you're losing your Chromebooks, you won't be able to see the last parts of it. But if you go to, I think you can Google or go on YouTube and look for Dave Rohde on YouTube. You'd be able to, if you want to see it, you'd be able to find it. I can make sure that I videotape it and put it on there if I'm not able to get you the link and you could see it. Or you can send me an email and I could send you a link for it as well if you're interested, just to see what it looks like when it's done and how to do the drawer and stuff like that. All right, thanks guys. If you don't hear from me again, make sure you have a great summer, and hopefully we'll be back in the shop next fall, hopefully. I know that this has been miserable for a shop class doing it online. It's not what you signed up for, but it is what it is. We just do what we have to do. So looking forward to you guys back here next fall. If I don't talk to you, have a great summer. Thanks guys.